Hey, I'm super excited to be hosting this session, and I don't want to spend too much time with introductions or anything, so I'm going to share my screen right now, and we can dive straight into the presentation itself. I'm hoping that no matter if you are completely new in this space or if you've been operating this space for a while, that hopefully there'll be something for you that's interesting. So I basically want to cover three things. One of them is the story so far. What are the kind of key milestones in this particular story of virtual goods and digital fashion? Um, Trying to explain a little bit what virtual goods and digital fashion are, because a common reaction from both people sometimes within the sector and consumers is, what is it? And should we believe the hype? So I want to hopefully try and provide a kind of a balanced uh, perspective on each of those. So this is a super naive kind of like timeline diagram, which shows you some of the key milestones that have happened within virtual goods and digital fashion. And the first one on the left-hand side is if we look at Sims, the multiplayer simulation game, and also Second Life. And interesting that they both happened around 2007, where brands, Armani wasn't the only one, French Connection, Jean-Paul Gaultier, etc., spent quite considerable amounts of money, and ASOS also kind of in this space. However, the consumer demand didn't continue kind of through time. The next one in 2008, and you can see that obviously there's a friction or a kind of huge bubble of activity, as I mentioned in the preamble to what this session is about. Now, I'm sure some of you might recognize this crypto kitty in the top section here. This one's significant because it is the milestone in the virtual kind of goods sector, which demonstrates that there is some kind of willingness for people to purchase goods which don't exist in real life. And there are many other examples out with the fashion sector, but I'm concentrating on this sector kind of specifically. In the same year, on the bottom, Carling's, the fast fashion European retailer, created the world's first digital collection. You can see the price point was very different. For those of you who don't know, what happened was consumers went onto the Carling's website, picked a garment that they wanted, made a transaction to purchase it. The money went to charity. And in return, within about 24 hours, they got an image of themselves e-fitted or e-tailored into the garment. And so significant was that campaign that people are still writing about it now and still referencing it. And since then, Carling's have done another activation, which I'll also talk about. In 2019, we can see a definite collision between games publishers and fashion brands. So again, at both levels of the marketplace, there aren't many places where you can get a Louis Vuitton outfit for $25. And similarly, we can see Nike with one of their iconic sneakers as well being featured in this area. Again, kind of similar to the kind of Crypto Kitty scenario is the Fabricant, who are very much kind of pioneers in this space, as the world's kind of leading what they describe as thought couture, or the world's first digital couture house. And this was the lady in this image, was purchased this iridescent dress by her husband as a gesture of love. So for the princely sum of £9,000, she doesn't ever get that physical garment. She gets images and videos of herself in that garment to love and treasure for forever. And she has verification that she owns that. So potentially it could increase in value. Something that's super exciting that's happened in the last 3 months in particular within lockdown and quarantine is the emergence of Robo and tribute brands. So these are the world's first brands who have transacted in a stereotypical way to regular fashion, where the money created has actually gone to the people who's created it. So for instance, Fabricant and for Carling's, both of the money for those went to charity. And it's super exciting as well. You can see that Nicola Formichetti is getting involved in this campaign. There's starting to be kind of like traction. And then on the right-hand side, this is a very new example inside of a fashion gaming platform called Ada, who have created this digital manipulation of Moncler's Genius collaboration with Valentino, which in real life is £17,000 or dollars. And this equates to $17 in game. So we're seeing a new level of kind of democracy within these items. I'm not going to read these two out, but I think you can see kind of synergies between them. So they are representations of virtual goods in kind of digital fashion of real things. So for instance, in the virtual goods sector, we're used to seeing these in games where you could be buying guns or skins or kind of things to decorate you whilst you play. What we're seeing more recently now is that digital fashion is evolving so that this asset could be experienced and traded both in a physical and a digital environment. And there's multiple ways to wear it. So it could be worn on an avatar, or it could be tracked and layered to a physical body. And I'll show you some examples of that. So this is something I'm working on at the moment, trying to look at a classification of virtual fashion goods. And the way that I think it is significant to look at it is the garment digital or physical, and is the environment you want your user to experience the garment digital or physical. And so if we start with the one that we're probably all most familiar with, the skin. So this is a digital garment in a digital environment. And again, you can't escape all the press and publicity that we've seen with Animal Crossing recently. And again, what's super interesting is that it was consumers in game who were creating the garments before brands actually stepped in and said, wait a minute, we should get involved in this. Sorry for going super fast, but I just want to make sure I would get enough time to converse. Physical environment with a digital layer, we're kind of semi-familiar, or it's easy for us to compute using a magic mirror type experience. And this is one which was created a number of years ago by Holition for Uniqlo. Something which is newer, the top two are kind of newer. And if we look at the context of soft wearables, so the integration of augmented reality as a programmable content is something which Carlings, that did the first digital collection, launched in December this year. So here they use Instagram filters as a way to update a basic t-shirt, which in theory means you can buy fewer physical clothes and augment them with digital content, which is super powerful. And there should be more people kind of experimenting in this space. And then something that's a bit more kind of less used. This is a startup called Super Personal outside of who are out of London, and they use kind of deep fake technology. So by adding your image, so your face, onto a pre-recorded image of a garment, somebody wearing a garment, this has really strong potential, particularly for try-on within an e-commerce environment. So what is the hype? The hype is the numbers, and there are various different kind of estimations from kind of like 75 to 150 billion, but the numbers are huge. They're bigger than the film industry, etc. And that's what's making many kind of CEOs kind of like perk up and think, this is a sizable market, and it's also an audience that could kind of grow into the brand. And there was a really good report published earlier this year by BNP, which looks at the virtual economy, and it states that 2.5 billion active accounts in the virtual economy, and they classify them as producers, pirates, and pioneers. It's a really good report I would suggest you look at. More recently, the impact of COVID has meant that people have really expedited their experimentation of digitalizing garments for potentially a showroom environment or a fashion show environment. And kind of last but not least, we are overproducing, we are over-consuming. Kerry Murphy from The Fabricant says we really don't need any more physical clothing. And this year alone, we're manufacturing 150 billion garments. So surely that alone is also a really significant, more than hype, actually, to get people into this space. And this is a exclusive statistic which has come from Fashion for Good out of Amsterdam, some emerging research that says that virtual goods, the production of virtual goods and the consumption of them has 90% less resources than physical garments. And that's something, it's still a work in progress, but it's something I wanted to show you. I'm not going to jump into this one too much because it's quite detailed, but hopefully what it shows is that there are considerable methods which range from economic to social. And also there are a range of use cases. So if you do decide to digitalize a garment as part of your sampling or prototyping, don't forget that you can use it in marketing. You can use it in a retail environment. You can give it as a gift with purchase to consumers so that they can start curating a digital wardrobe perhaps, and play with their kind of digital twin. So what are the challenges? So the kind of the opposite to the hype, but also a space which it really has opportunities. Well, if you ask the person on the street, there is still a bit of the kind of head scratching, etc., about digital fashion. And outside of gaming, there's still quite a low interaction, especially in regards to actual physical, well, it's not physical, actual purchasing of virtual goods. If we look at the different try-on experiences that are there, so for instance, with avatars and not with avatars and body scanning, there are lots out there, but there are none that have been kind of like mass adopted or scaled as yet. And also, if you are a brand and you put your digital asset out into the environment, for those people who are skilled in that area, they can actually be quite easily replicated. So that's why things like NFT and kind of blockchain are an interesting way to perhaps get more people kind of on board. And again, I won't look at this, this one kind of in detail, but the digital fashion ecosystem is still really fragmented. There's lots of individual specialists in their space kind of doing their thing. And what we need to see is more kind of convergence and more people kind of joining together and kind of taking a chance on this space. So now I can breathe for a moment and I can stop sharing my screen, and I will ask Ben and Riccardo to switch on their cameras and switch on their microphones. Riccardo, I'd like to ask you first of all, so you've been a really early mover in this space. What decided you to move Sergio Rossi into this space? Why and kind of what have you done?
Buongiorno, Karinna, to everybody. When I joined the company, the first aim was to try to play with the digital, telling our incredible heritage story. Sergio Rossi has near 70 years, so we have an incredible heritage on the ground, but always the Italian issue for the company is how we can tell the story in a new way, without destroying the past. So it's always very delicate. So we try to start with the customization. So already 3 years ago, integrate the 3D virtual goods and selling these shoes before production. So also trying to integrate our chain, because we have one of the only few company having internal production of over 1,000 shoes by day by hands. So there is a capability that this is unique. And when you can try to get this human capability, using innovation to get the customer, is the perfect deal. Always is a lesson every day. So, but I always tell to my team, I will be the person taking the responsibility and the loss. So you follow me, we do mistake, we are human, but every day we can improve it. It's my philosophy. We cannot be invincible, but we need to be sure that we are speedy to change and speedy to move on.
Excellent. Well, I really admire that kind of pioneering attitude. And kind of similar question for you, Ben. So you've also been working in this space for over 5 years. How does Platforme relate to digital and fashion and virtual goods?
So hi everyone, and Karinna, thank you so much for bringing me and Riccardo as a part of this panel. It is, first of all, a very well-versed topic, because believe me, as a company, we face challenges every day in terms of evangelizing on 3D goods in general and digital product creation as such, because starting from our core activity, and Platforme is essentially a software company, and through our technology, we are digitizing and standardizing made-to-order approach across all the stakeholders involved. So we're talking brands, retailers, and the manufacturers including. And through that, basically offer, we give the ability to brands and retailers to offer a level of digital customization, digitally personalized goods, and digital collections. So consequentially, we understood very early on the power of virtual goods and the power of digital product creation. to be able to obviously showcase, you know, all these permutations. Say if you're doing a product from scratch, it's virtually impossible to replicate that on a physical level. And as such, it has actually propelled a new unit within our business that is dedicated to propagating, to showing why and how the industry should be embracing digital product as such.
Excellent. And if I can switch back to Riccardo and ask you, so being kind of early to go into digital as part of made to order, etc., what benefits have you seen within the business?
Obviously, when you put in your project the customer at the center of the your world, the best way to embrace it with the digital, you can be everywhere in one time. If you consider how many stores I need to open to be close to them, if you consider also the situation of the pandemic situation the last month, with the digital, you can be close to them. Obviously, coming from this heritage is always difficult, or is very challenging the positive way to find the balance. But you know, the good point is that you can design collection. Was very difficult to evangelize my team, but you can understand designer always design on a fantastic paper with a fantastic pencil, moving on a tablet. But then I can tell them, I convince them, tell me, okay, you can offer more. Because if you go digital, you can offer 10 times. There is no waste of leather, no waste of fuel, no waste of energy. But it's also something touching the sustainability, the good point. You know, our factory is already 100% green energy. So I love this point, but if I can also save that energy and be a little bit more open with the customer, and let decide what they like it before also producing. It could be also a good test, even if every brand has one direction and want to follow the direction. But you can use be used by the customer to be a little bit more integrated and much more quick to market.
Amazing, thank you. And what, if I can ask you, what have you not done yet with digital that you would like to? That's not too
everything.
Too everything.
No, I'm joking, but you know, all my team is telling me we did enough. I always tell them we did 1%, because you know I'm a positive person. Now, what I would love to do always is trying to get this incredible factory machine with this over 100 people touching the shoes. I want to find a good way to show to the public how it is, because all the people, they come to the factory, they are shocked, because you can see that one shoes is made by 110 steps to make one pair of shoes from 16 to 26 hours. So it's a piece of art. And sometimes it's very difficult to explain this story outside. So, and if you made like in a cold way, sometimes technology is cold. What the technology need to, let me see, upgrade is the coldness of the technology and the hot that is coming now. And the heritage and then made, they need to become a little bit more cold, not only poetry. If I can mix up these situations of factory outside in a modern way, I will love it, because it means that you can also, my dream, follow your shoes in the line, in the chain of production, and see wherever it is. Really, with the person touching your shoes, and very soon it will be on your feet.
Yeah, I think that's a really amazing opportunity. I'm sure you'll probably have lots of people in your inbox giving you some ideas for that. Ben, if I can come back to you, you mentioned that you launched a new business unit called Digit, and within that you have created something called the virtual value chain. I wonder if you can explain a little bit what that is.
Sure, it will be my pleasure to do so. So, first of all, commenting back on some of Riccardo's points, we absolutely see digital product creation as intrinsic to the current processes of the industry. And I think for us, the biggest barrier, if anything, it's actually changing the mindset and going back to Riccardo's point of demystifying, creating opportunities where we can have more transparency of what this means and how it will aid, how it will actually relieve teams to do things better and in a more creative way. So we don't see it as a trade-off. we see it as a really important add-on that will help tremendously in both in terms of time spent and definitely in terms of expenditure. And in return, it will actually create room for creative and critical thinking to spend more time on creativity and also looking at sustainability, which is definitely a part of this remit. So it's not about the trade-off, it's about slotting digital production, digital product creation in, if you like, as a part of the current process, and weaving that within the current practices is, you know, what we are about. So Digit was created essentially from this need to help brands get on with digital product creation. What do they need to do exactly? How is this done? What type of technology they need to implement? How will the implementation process be taking place? Who are the key stakeholders? So we look at key three areas. Obviously, what technology, which starts first from what we do at Platforme, but it's also about looking at the market and creating an opportunity depending on what the assignment is, what is the client, wish list in terms of final achievement, to actually also look wider into the market and what are those complementary technologies where if we pair it all together, it could be a very compelling solution for the client. So it was essentially born from the need. It came very organic to us, where our clients essentially needed somebody to consult on the 3D strategy and somebody that could not just work with them on the 3D product creation, but actually also appropriate that in the right stages of usage. For example, it could be for an internal use, so from digital product sampling, for example, so digital merchandising, digital showrooms, to actually, also externalize the use to the final customer, where, from the digital product creation, you can also extend this solution to your e-commerce and beyond. And then there comes the final layer, which you touched upon, of the actual virtual goods. So right now, what I've described and what Riccardo has described is largely driven by digital to physical approach, where in the end the fulfillment will be a real product, but we are almost certain, in fact, we know that virtual goods will be yet another level where a company could definitely leverage all this work done. But most importantly, that's, in my point of view, this is a fantastic way for brands to leverage what they're best at, which is their intellectual property. And if that can travel further through virtual goods commercialization, for me, there is a big tick there. In terms of advantages, I would say, they're very clear, in terms of measurables. So you're talking, significant reduction in time, and the inversion of hockey stick when it comes to cost, say, in sampling, which is one of the biggest expenses that a fashion brand could have. Reduction of cost, say, in e-commerce, deployment, where, the cost of shooting an item, retouching it and all of that is enormous. And obviously, if you can then further extend that into a virtual sale as well, where, I believe that's the ultimate holy grail, where you can leverage all aspects of digital product creation as a brand. So we work with our client across all these areas, starting from very elementary things, from, as a brand, you typically have a massive amount of key materials that you use in and out. We start with, for example, digitizing that, which is the first, step. We help them obviously create the 3D models, 3D prototyping, their digital pack shots, which then helps them.
I wanted to ask, actually, if I can like take out one of the things that you mentioned there and ask Riccardo. So I know that Sergio Rossi has digital customization stations in store, so that kind of blurring of physical and digital. And what are kind of consumers' reactions to digital in that context? Because there's a very hyper realization of the products which are being created effectively.
The point is always, it depends on the customer. You know, new generation is, they are living this world in this situation. So for them, it's very usual to do it. The point then, you know, we have customer from 18 years old to 70. So you need to be flexible also with them, because you can help the visionary to be all digital. You have customer like in the new store that we opened in Monte Napoleone just 1 month ago, and you have the photo on my back, where we put this slide, but we are doing every day sales by video call with the customer. Then one of them is coming with the taxi to take the shoes because they want to try back second times, and other times they want to receive a tone with the private car. You need to be, the big problem and the big challenge for the company is to be ready for everything. Because if you take only one way, this is my philosophy, you need to know where you're going. So try to have a really omni-channel direction. That it means that the customer is at the center, and if you want see by video, trying by physical, and buy by commerce, you should be ready to do it. You cannot just tell, I got the e-commerce, I got the store, bye-bye. And just the delivery in the store is the good way. Yeah, it's 10% of the possibility. Because perhaps it's coming to buy and try, and then it was a customization shoes. Then you don't have it, and you need to produce in the next 3 weeks. So this is why I try also to get all the production chain linked to me. We are one of the few companies with the size having the production chain internally. With the production chain, I received the order in Monte Napoleone. Tomorrow morning, the factory, my factory is already making shoes with my real people. So I using technology to be close to the customer, but then I need to use my real people to make it. Good point. This is a real example of the balance. But you need to make mistake, as I tell. When we opened the store was 3 days after the opening of the lockdown in Milano. I was the first brand opening a new store concept in Monte Napoleone. Everybody look at me like you are crazy. Then when they see the store, and it's crazy. You know, you have a slide with the shoes coming down, a real slide. Yeah, but the point is trying to get also the youngness and the netness to the people. We need to take new energy to the people. It means we already suffer worldwide 2, 3, 4 months of suffering. Now let's embrace, I think it's a good occasion for technology. Because if we can embrace also in a positive way the technology, I think nobody was expecting either ban with this situation that was negative in terms of personal economics, but in terms of innovation scale. Means also the conference of today, most of the time we need to take the flight, come together and make it. Now everybody is usual to do, and also the attendance is much more than the physical. So you are reaching with technology more people, so it's working. And I think human, they need to try, understand that it's working, taking positivity on this and making one step more. So this is the momentum of doing. Or you do now as a company, or you cannot do anymore. You don't have another challenge like this.
Excellent. I really appreciate that kind of honest experience that you've just shared. We have a couple of questions from the audience. One of the first ones from Carl is, of the pirates, producers and pioneers, which of these groups is most important to driving evolution in this space? I guess my answer, and I'll ask Riccardo and Ben, is that it's the pioneers. We need the pioneers first. In order, or I don't know, maybe we need the producers first, and then the pioneers kind of like jump on board.
You need to have pioneers first. The idea is coming first. If you don't have the idea, you cannot make any production. Obviously, then you need to have the production, you need to have also the pirates. I love it. But let me see, the pirates is to get new country, no? Just to take the boat and to go over there. But before you need to start with the pioneer and idea. And I know all the time, with Ben also we discussed in the past, being pioneer is very risky, but it's fantastic because they look at you like crazy. because at the beginning they don't look at you like you are crazy. That for me is always a compliment. Then when they look at you a little bit more, it means that is a good point. Then when they follow you, okay, you are a pioneer, but you need to do 3 steps before arriving.
Excellent. I really like that discussion. We have another question, which is from B, Inspired Clothing. Maybe Ben, you would be able to answer this one. So we'd love to know how a fashion brand with no experience in digital products could get started. Since Ben, you've got experience of the whole ecosystem, what would you suggest?
Actually, it's a great question. I think if you are really serious about, embracing digital goods, this is a fantastic stage to start in. For example, at Digit, we believe firmly in working around 3 areas, which is technology, culture, and process, right? Which are all the 3 things that you can address at the very early stage when setting up digital product creation. So I think in this case, ask the questions of what is it as a part of the fashion system at the moment that is currently broken or not efficient, and replace those processes with digital processes. In our point of view, for example, instead of being a young brand and committing to huge minimums of quantities that you have to have in order to have your goods made in a regular way, instead of investing in that inventory, actually invest in digital product creation with a much more linear made-to-order approach, which would minimize the level of inventory commitment that you would need to do, and therefore expense, with the hope to obviously sell it later on, into the right technology early on. So you're investing in digital product creation that could have, quasi-infinite permutations. So you can also create new collections, if you like, out of that. And definitely embracing leaner manufacturing systems as you go forward via made-to-order proposition. So that's what we would advise to any new brand that starts today.
Amazing. I guess we haven't talked too much about consumer adoption of virtual goods and digital fashion. And the kind of $1 million question, I suppose, is when will it tip from being niche to mainstream? And although we've said that there are multiple parts to adoption of virtual goods, for example. So I don't know. I mean, if you think of something like a full body augmented reality filter on a social platform that you don't have to pay for, that obviously has an earlier entry point and an easier entry point than paying X amount of pounds for, I don't know, an Iris Van Herpen digital couture hologram or something like that. But yeah, my question to both of you is, maybe Riccardo, I'll ask you first. When do you think this might tip from niche to mainstream for the mass market customer?
It depends. I'm a little bit split in two, because if I'm following my factory and my artisan, I need to tell, okay, let's go ahead, but not so speedy. On the other side, I know that something will happen. I cannot know, because if I could know, I will change my job. But let me see. Obviously, we'll start, because if you see the new generation, the way out they are living the gaming, they are living the virtual reality. It's obvious that if you take 2 hours of your day on this, it means that you are taking out 2 hours of your day from the real life and from the real dress up and everything. So it's going to touch also the and care to the lipsticks, to everything. It means this usually will be, this is the point. It means not only the shoes, not only the clothing, it will be virtual on everything. So we will be virtual. You are living, let me see, more life today. We already made during this lockdown. We are working by distance. You stay. You are the father. You stay with your wife. So you are making already many lives, something real and something virtual. So why not also, I'm dressing this polo, but Ben can make something that the polo I'm nude and can cover me with something else.
Yeah, I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah, so this situation will touch, and this is the reason why we need to be ready and not to tell it never happens. I never like the idea that, no, it never happens. It will be in 10 years. Perhaps will be in 10 years, but perhaps can be next year. You don't know also what's happened in the world. So we need to be ready also with small tests to do it, see the reaction. Perhaps you don't do anything with small money, you don't, never happens, but gaming, Ben, no, I believe a lot on Ben, on the gaming. Gaming for me, also in terms of making interaction with the customer and the staff is working. So with the staff, I see all the academy that we do with them using gaming technology, they're learning what is Sergio Rossi much better than making the test ABC, that is very boring. So you see already our people, they are linking the gaming. They have only a small faces making a cartoon, but if tomorrow I can tell you, I pay you the bonus, dressing better the cartoon, the avatar, perhaps they will love it.
I appreciate that kind of colorful explanation or idea. What about you, Ben? What's your prediction?
So first of all, again, I never see this necessarily a competing area or an area that takes away from other areas. You know, like any new attempt to, you know, to a new way of selling via new technology can sometimes, you know, feel very overwhelming and in some aspects also quite threatening compared to traditional practices, right? I mean, e-commerce was one of those areas, and I'm sure Natalie Massenet can attest to that. You know, she had to obviously court brands and show them that this is possible and it will be fine because their physical stores will still keep on selling. And if you look at the market has grown bigger since e-commerce. It hasn't really, there was not really a trade-off overall on how much a brand sells. Of course, more and more the e-commerce sales are growing. It's on the digital part. But that's not to say that the market has shrunk or it has changed from physical to digital. As the market as a whole has grown when you look at it. So I see it as more is more. I see it as a new way to market to your customer, a new way to basically sell and leverage your brand IP. So I see it as an incremental from my point of view. And really, when we think about the customer, even omni-channel as a notion is somehow dated. You have one channel today, it's your customer. So wherever they are, I think as a brand, you should be present and appropriate the form of communication in which they will be engaging with you. And, you know, I see it as a form of inspiring. So you may discover, you know, a garment and a brand via a game that you love, and may end up actually purchasing the physical, you know, option as well, and vice versa. You own something physically that you love and you cherish, but you want to mirror that online, and you're going to purchase that online. So I really see this as a augmented ecosystem that actually helps you engage with the customer. And here, I would invite everybody to think outside of the box of the industry, whereby we need to look at what are the biggest technology companies doing at the moment. And actually, when you look at it, the battle is to really enter your homes in a very seamless way via speakers, via game consoles. For example, Google launched a gaming platform late last year. We know obviously the speaker power that has infiltrated our homes. So these are all technologies that attempt to communicate with you as a consumer at a continuous basis without any friction. And if we as an ecosystem can find ways to actually cater to our customers, to talk to our customers, and be able to market to them in novel ways that again don't pose a friction because the customers are already there, they're obviously engaging. I think we should be embracing that without worrying about the trade-off. I think it's all going to be good and actually help overall.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a very positive note to finish on for this session. And I hope we managed to meet the aims of demystifying kind of this particular sector and also provide a bit of a balanced viewpoint about the challenges and rewards of kind of getting into this space. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Ben or Riccardo, please connect with them on LinkedIn. I think that would be the most appropriate channel, first of all. And I hope that this might be the start of a digital faction or a virtual goods discussion for everybody. I'll hand back now to the PSFK team to tell you what's next. Thank you so much to Ben and Riccardo.
Thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here. Thank you.
Also for me. Bye-bye.